Good evening and welcome to tonight's school committee on December 14th. The committee just left an executive session, and so we're going to go ahead and get started. We've already called the meeting to order. And so we will go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance like we always do. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Like we always do, I'll read the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of the community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. With that, we'll open it up to public comment. We've got a couple people in the studio. If you want to go ahead. Yep. If you can just state your name and your address, Holly.
Hi, my name is Holly Forty, and I live at 37 Hillcrest Road in Wakefield.
You go.
Good evening. I am before the school committee tonight to express the continued frustration of many parents and community members about the ongoing failure of leadership from school administration. To say that we are disappointed would be a tremendous understatement. It is borderline unfathomable that we even need to be here to request again that the school committee look into and publicly address the issues that are ongoing at Wakefield Memorial High School. The school committee has witnessed news media, public protests, and a letter read to them from several victimized young girls. Madam Chairwoman, at a previous meeting, your constituents came before you and asked that you place on the agenda a discussion about the recent issues that occurred at the high school. I ask respectfully, where is that agenda item? I am hopeful that this discussion will happen tonight, but the agenda unfortunately does not indicate whether or not that will occur. Again, parents are left wondering. We want answers. We want to know the plan that is in place to protect our children, who we entrust the Wakefield Public Schools to keep safe. There is no more important job than the school committee has than to keep our children safe. And we want to hear this school committee speak publicly about how they intend to do so. At the last meeting, the union president, who represents our committed educators, expressed her concerns as well. Do you think hearing that inspires confidence in community members that situations are being properly handled? Has the school committee heard their concerns as well? The school committee works for the people of Wakefield, not the school administration. We are asking that you provide some assurance to the many parents and community members who are concerned about the issues at the Wakefield Public Schools. This has gone on long enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Rob?
Good evening. My name is Robert Imbriano. I live at 145 Salem Street in Wakefield. So I'm here tonight to renew our request that the school committee publicly discuss the recent issues at the high school and publicly discuss their plans regarding how they will make sure something like this never happens again. I noticed that on the agenda tonight there is a policy proposal from the policy subcommittee. I would like to request that the policy subcommittee also look into creating a policy regarding a safety plan for the students in Wakefield, especially with an eye to the recent problems that have been occurring. I want to reiterate to the school committee that while the cameras and news helicopters are gone for now, the parents are very much still here, and we are still demanding answers. We remain troubled by the lack of communication from the school administration, and we are again asking that the school committee, as our elected officials, provide answers to the many parents who are left wondering about what is being done to ensure the safety of our children. The situation is very serious, and we're asking that the school committee take it seriously and show that they are taking it seriously by publicly telling the people of Wakefield what they have done to investigate this issue, how it was handled, and the steps being taken moving forward. It has been 2 months since this heinous act was discovered. 2 months. And the victims have not been able to put this behind them yet. The dark cloud of uncertainty hovers over their heads. The uncertainty of whether they will have to be in the same school or same classroom as the student who is responsible for the photos has been taxing. Some of the victims have had difficulty sleeping. Some had to drop classes due to falling behind, and some have received incomplete grades also for falling behind. This all happening during a very important time during their high school career as they begin their search for colleges. The criminal investigation yielded no criminal charges and deemed to be poor judgment and questionable conduct. Let's not let these findings diminish the fact what occurred was extremely inappropriate, dangerous, and will have long-lasting effects on the victims. These photos were posted on a website that is well known to be a breeding ground for sexual predators. I can source many articles of national publications stating this fact. I want to be abundantly clear that the victims did not take pictures of themselves and post them to their own social media websites, and then these photos were retrieved from the social media and then posted to the Discord website. I also want to be clear that someone took numerous photos of body parts of these victims without their consent, upwards of 250 of one victim alone, another 50 of upskirt photos of another victim, but because there were no clear photos of certain body parts during this upskirting, it did not meet the letter of the law for upskirting. Please try to look at that girl in the eye and explain to her that a phone pointed up her skirt is not illegal. Each victim had a section on the Discord server with their name on it. You clicked on their name and all the pictures that were posted would appear. Yes, some were taken from the social media site, but many were not. I could go on and describe some of the things that were on this website, but when we hear terms such as poor judgment and questionable conduct, we find that extremely insensitive and extremely insulting. It is much more than that. So why do I bring this all up? Because now we must answer a very important question. Is it appropriate to let someone who committed these acts, illegal or not, to share the same school hallways and classrooms as these victims? Are we asking too much of the affected girls after everything they've been through to accept that? We think the answer to those questions are very easy, and that is why we'll insist on policy changes to keep this from happening in the future. We need to change something. We can do better, we need to do better, and we can do better. I would like to end this by thanking the school committee members who have taken the time to meet with us over the past several weeks to hear our concerns. The policy subcommittee, Stephen Ingalls, Kevin, Amy Lehman, thank you for your time. Mike Boudreau, thank you for being an ear of comfort during this time. You've been a great facilitator in organizing meetings. And Amy Wall, the gratitude for your support and statement is immeasurable. So thank you. Thank you.
WCAT, do we have anybody else on public comment? No? Okay. Student Advisory Council, Molly. Looks like and Maggie.
Hi.
Maggie, do you want to go first?
Yes, I will. Sorry, it's a little bit loud. I am at work real quickly. So for academics, there are 4 weeks left in term 2. Mid-year assessments will be on the 4 days following Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and they will be full school days. Longer assessment periods will occur in the morning, and then we'll have time to review and prep with teachers in the afternoon. So I know in the past we've had like getting dismissed and a half day after a midterm, but this year we're gonna have fuller school days. Other school news and stuff. We have the National Art Honor Society hosting a winter door decorating contest at the high school, and all the teachers that we've seen are getting really into it. I'm actually helping the guidance department with their window/door, so it's really exciting. I can't wait for the first round. Today we did have a guest speaker come to the high school to talk to all students. So Katie Greer is an internet safety expert and presenter. She covered a few topics today related to internet safety, privacy issues, creating a healthy relationship with boundaries around social media. And then grade level assemblies were held in the Savings Bank Theater throughout the day, so we spread it out by grade. And then tomorrow, December 15th, is an early release, so we are out at 10:50, and I'm going to hand it over to Molly.
Yeah, other school news also tomorrow. In the theater, there is a discussion forum regarding the next steps with the Warrior logo, and it's open to all WMHS students. And students can use this time to learn more about the process, express their thoughts, and find out how to get involved with the Warrior logo. And lastly, there is no school on Friday, December 24th, as winter break begins, and we will return to school on Monday, January 3rd for the new year.
Okay. Any questions for our liaisons? All right. Thanks, girls. Maggie, you should probably get back to work. Thanks, guys. Have a great break.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, Tom?
Susie,
Yeah.
can we take something out of order? Could I ask?
When we get a little further down, we can't. What did you want to take out of order?
If you want to do the consent agenda, that's fine, but I would actually like to address some of the work that we're doing on the policy and communications to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, the intention is, so that is the second item under my chair comments. So the intention was to take that out of order to actually talk about responding to the incident at the high school and what
Okay.
is going on. So we were planning on talking about that tonight. I agree, it's not clear on the agenda. But yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, and then I've asked Kevin to speak kind of outside of the subcommittee updates.
thank you.
Consent agenda.
Move the school committee approve the minutes of the November 23, 2021 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the meeting of October 26, 2021 school committee policy and communication subcommittee and the December 2, 2021 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, do we need to do a roll call because Mike's, let's do a roll call. Judy?
Right.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
Okay. Christine, budget items?
Sure. This is the financial reports through November 30th. First page is the local budget, as you can see, pretty stable since last month, just a couple more payrolls and some encumbrances for purchases. The one thing I will draw your attention to on the grant page, in the month of November, we received 3 entitlement grants from the federal government from ARP. They are special ed related due to our entitlements for our populations. So one of them was for special ed for mental health services, one's for early childhood, and one is for homeless children and youth in Wakefield. So we haven't had a chance to start spending that money, but it did come in November. The last page is the revolving accounts, still in a good spot. And I know Tom always asks about circuit breaker. We're waiting for the December payment to wipe out that negative amount. Does anyone have any questions on November? The next would be the payrolls for November. We have a motion.
We do. Move the school committee approve payroll warrants 20 and 22 as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. Judy, roll call.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
The only we don't have any gifts tonight, and further along in the agenda, Doug and I are just going to talk a little bit about the budget development process and our timeline. So that's it for right now.
Okay. So I had, it's my turn to talk. I had planned to talk a little bit in response to Lisa's request at our last meeting. You guys are right, that we do not have the topic of the high school incident on the agenda, most explicitly. So I think while we all continue to kind of, we all continue to struggle with what happened at the high school, and we are putting a focus on how to prevent it moving forward, but we have to kind of respect what the school committee has purview over, which is policy, which we're going to talk about, budget, which I don't think has any kind of implications at this point, and some educational elements that we're going to talk about also. I think Doug's going to give a bit of an update of kind of what we're doing from an education standpoint around preventing this from the future, happening in the future. But there's a lot that we can't talk about, mostly around privacy, right? We just can't talk about student privacy situations. And one of the things I wanted to give an update on during my update was last week we spent some time with Michael Joyce, an attorney who specializes in both special ed and civil rights. And he spent time talking to us as a committee about privacy, what we can and cannot talk about. And the reality is we as school committee members have no right to know what's happening with students in particular. We don't fall into the categories of people who can know about what is happening with students. And so we talked a lot about privacy. We talked about Title IX and kind of the new regulations that have come about in the last year and a half or so regarding Title IX and kind of the context of how that could fit into the situation that happened at the high school. And then we spent some time talking about discipline and kind of the rules around the fact that we can only expel students if they've brought a weapon to the school, they've brought drugs into the school, they've assaulted a teacher. We talked about the limitations around suspensions. And so we did some what we call professional development, where we were able to kind of ask questions, but not specific questions, because again, we can't get into the business of the specifics that happen with students, which makes this complicated, right? And so I do appreciate that you want to hear more and the community wants to hear more. I think the school committee is committed to doing the work that we need to do around policy change, and Kevin is going to talk a little bit about the discussions that have happened so far there. I think we're very committed to relooking at, from an education standpoint, how are we talking to students about the various things that kind of apply in this situation, and we are going to talk a little bit about that. But when you get to safety plans, that becomes kind of a very student-specific situation that we don't have any right as school committee members to know. And I get that is frustrating. I think it's frustrating for us as well as for you as parents. But I think if anything, I know I walked away from the session with Michael Joyce last week understanding even more about kind of what we are allowed to know and what we are not allowed to be involved in. So I think we're doing our best, and our best doesn't feel like enough, I get that, but we're doing our best to stay within the walls and the confines of what we control, which is policy, budget, the employment of Doug, and labor negotiations, right? Like those are the four things that school committee is responsible for. And so at this point, I would like to turn it over to Kevin to talk about some of the policy work so that people can hear what's happening on that front. And then I think, Doug, a little bit later, you're going to talk a little bit about some of the educational things that are ongoing, as well as plans for things that we're going to think about in the future. So Kevin, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure, yeah, no, happy to. And this also kind of ties in a little bit with some of the policy services stuff. With
Yep,
MASC,
yes, which we need to talk about.
As we had talked
Yep.
about. So this kind of be a number of different things kind of going on. And certainly Ms. Lehman and Mr. Engels, if I forget anything or you can jump in, by all means, please do. So, certainly as Madam Chair talked about, one of the things that is under kind of our sphere of control is policy. And so we've dedicated the last two policy meetings, policy and communication subcommittee meetings, to talk about what is our process going to be and how we're going to undergo the process of looking at policy, particularly around those matters that this issue at hand had brought up. A few meetings ago, just going to segue for 1 second, we had talked about a presentation that MASC, Dorothy Presser, had done with us about engaging that organization and helping us with our policies and our policy book, and basically their policy services. And she had presented to the subcommittee, and we had heard about the proposal that they had kind of going forward and the ways that can be beneficial to us. The timing is good in the sense of, as we consider undertaking this process, they can really help us with some of these early stages of doing this kind of audit of all our policies, but some in particular. So we met this morning. We met 2 weeks ago. We had some guests join us as well and participate in some public participation, which was great. And the way that we want to approach, I think, the next steps in terms of a policy and the types of issues that we're talking about today is to work with MASC to do a policy review and to prioritize 4 particular areas. We're going to look at, more in depth, what we have and what's also best practices around bullying, harassment, a cell phone policy, and then a new policy, most likely around social media. And so we had a pretty robust conversation today, even starting to kind of talk about some of those things in our subcommittee meeting. Superintendent Lyons has been in touch with Dorothy that if we do engage them in the service, which the subcommittee would like to encourage the committee to agree to, it needs to be signed off by the chair to partake in the MASC process. But one of the first things that she's doing is starting to get together some social media policy that we can start to look at and start to hone and make specific for our community. So those are kind of the first 4 areas that we're really going to start to attack in a meaningful way to kind of address some of the things that this issue has kind of brought forward. And certainly with MASC's help and looking at what are other policies from other districts and how can we incorporate some of those in making it a Wakefield policy in those 4 areas. I don't know, Mr. Ingalls or Ms. Lehman, anything else on your end?
No, can you just define what MASC is?
Oh, yeah, good question, good point. So MASC is Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and basically what that is kind of like our organization that we're a part of, districts across the Commonwealth are a part of. They do advocacy work. They do a lot of assistance with helping us with professional development for ourselves. They do a lot of work in the legislature to keep us abreast of changes that are coming about. They'll share information about different policies that are coming up. And one of the things that we're looking to engage them in now, we've been talking about this for a long time. My first iteration on this committee we talked about and dreamed about. And so when Superintendent Lyons brought it forward, I was very excited again. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees offers a policy program or effort, and what they do, they host many policy books. It's a 3-year commitment that we would sign with MASC, and what they do through this policy program is they will do an audit of all our policies, again, kind of from their knowledge and their deep knowledge of Mass General Law, of what other districts are doing on policies, kind of current events, different things like that. They'll kind of go through our policy book one by one over a 3-year period. Eventually, what they'll do is not only help us in getting this policy book in order and it to be really top notch, but would allow us to then host our policy book as part of their service. So it's our policies, we write them, we approve them, we're not giving up anything in terms of that. But what this would allow us to do is to, A, make sure that our policies are congruent with best practices and where things are congruent with MGL, but that they're also then hosted in a way that they're accessible to community members, other interested individuals who can easily access our policies and make sense of what they are. So that's some of the service that we encourage, that we would like to move forward with. Again, it's something we've been talking about for a long time. It's over 3 years, and would just kind of come out of the budget each year for the 3 years.
I had purposely not signed that agreement until we got a chance to talk about it. It doesn't require a motion, I don't believe, but I did not feel comfortable just signing off on that without giving everybody an opportunity to ask questions. I think we have talked about this. Certainly, it's been talked about at the subcommittee level, but I didn't want to sign it until we talked about it. I do think that we've been talking about it for a bit of time now, but the timeliness, and I plan to sign it tomorrow unless anybody has an issue, because I think we want to get going. I think it will be really interesting to get their perspective on the cell phone policy, because that's one that we haven't necessarily had in place. And it would be interesting to know if, how other schools handle it, or, we have a policy, but it would be interesting to know how other schools manage that policy, because that would be, to me, that's a big one that's very applicable to the situation at hand. Anybody have questions or comments?
So that's not something we vote on, even though it's money being spent?
Nope, because it's in their budget.
Okay.
We vote on the full budget
Okay.
as a committee. We don't vote on kind of individual spending.
Right, I'm just
line
wondering
items.
about if it's going to be taking away from something. I'm not saying I'm against it, I'm just wondering if that's taking money out of something else that we could be using it for.
In terms of the administration of the budget, we have line item discretion, right? This is a particular priority. We can afford it. We're not seeking resources in addition to the budget.
Okay,
So we feel like, and it's a nominal amount of money compared to our overall budget,
okay.
And so it's broken out into payments over time. And it's the total cost is $3,500,
Okay.
broken out 3 times. And it's over a 3-year period. So, and for the service, the benefit that we would get and kind of how it aligns with this particular situation, I don't see how we couldn't prioritize this. Yeah.
Okay.
Michael? Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Not about that, but,
okay.
sorry, Mike. Not about that, but just a question in general about policy. So I don't know when would be an appropriate time.
Can you hold off for a second?
Mhm, yep.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to state the obvious, it's a no-brainer to me that we should move ahead with this.
So any other concerns on that? So we will move forward. I will sign that tomorrow. Go ahead, Stephen.
I just want to bring back to Kevin. I know it's it's important with the MASC, but just we have asked them to sort of focus on what's current and going on, and it sort of just quickened the pace of this sort of this relationship that we were already looking at. In addition, I think in policy is we're kind of taking a second glance sort of at handbooks again, just to make sure that we're getting proper alignment. So I think it's good practice that we're going to look for, what is best practice, what's working, what's not working for other districts, what can we learn, both what we're experiencing here in our community, what other communities have experienced in a fast-changing landscape, apply that, and then move that forward into sort of what, directly relates into the schools and what's working for them for plans. So it seems like it's a process that we're working through and making strides.
Awesome. Amy, is your question a policy question about, I'm just wondering, should it wait until the subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee update? Is it related to
yeah,
these?
maybe. It's not related per se to.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Do we have, I guess this is for that group, do we have a policy around communications, how communication is handled? Is that a thing?
No, but the policy subcommittee also handles communications, right? So that subcommittee handles policy and communications. I don't think we've been able to spend as much time on communications as we would like.
But we have as of late, right? So we are also consulting
Right.
and seeking the services of Guilfoyle Public Relations, which is the same consulting group that is used by a number of districts in the Middlesex League, but it's also used by local fire and police. So when things are often reported, they can be done in conjunction with other municipal kind of organizations. So, but there's 2 parts to that. One is Guilfoyle provides services, communication services, in the event that there's an emergency, right? Or in the event that something needs to be reported to the media or to the community, right? So that's a part of it. But they also do kind of public relations work to kind of highlight the other positive events that are happening that can address and need to be, that often go underreported in regard to like educational opportunities that might be taking place that might contribute or address to things that the parents are bringing up for this particular event, for example. They would help us highlight those types of things.
Okay, I'm just seeing, I guess along the lines of standard operating procedure. I know I've talked about it before, about having a kind of a crisis management book or whatever, and just having something maybe in writing that says, you know, if X is to happen, here's the chain of commands that we follow. This is, you know, we can't give out this information, but this is what we can say. If, you know, Y happens, this is what we do. So I don't know if that's something that the MASC, if their guidance, it helps with that type of stuff, or if that's something that you folks would do on your own in a subcommittee. I don't know.
So in terms of crisis management, we do have a crisis manual. We're also in the process of looking at rewriting that. Okay, and so, but that, and the work that we do with the police and kind of larger issues, it does not kind of pertain to student discipline necessarily, or an issue, I think, at this scale.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking discipline-wise. I'm just talking, you know, I'll use the water main break at the Galvin, for instance.
Sure.
So if, you know, if water main break happens, we have to dismiss the students, here's what we do.
Yep.
Like that type of thing. It doesn't say, you know,
Yep.
Doug
Yep.
Lyons broke the water pipe and now he's going to be suspended. That's not like that type of stuff. But just to say, how do we communicate that to the board? How do we communicate that to parents, to the community?
Like
You know,
a
what's
calling
the,
tree.
huh?
Like a calling tree, right? Where you
Yeah,
have-
exactly, yeah. That I don't know if that would be something that would be helpful, that if it's in writing, then that way there's no guessing or misunderstanding what is supposed to happen.
I think we had discussed earlier on, after the water main break, that there is a, like, if there's an emergency, there are plans in every school for what an emergency is and how to communicate that out. I think we said in the case of the water main break, it almost fell into this sort of, it wasn't quite an emergency, it took one step down.
Right, and so, we've already debriefed that a couple times.
Yeah.
And so
I was just
that
using
was,
that
you know,
for- yeah.
you know, we learned about a lot of things, what not to do, kind of, you know, on a hot day, don't release kids onto the blacktop and make them sit there while their parents are standing 100 feet away, right? I mean, there's plenty to take away there.
Right.
It's almost easy, but I think you're asking the question in the context of what has just currently transpired, correct? So that is something a little bit different, right? And I think that there's a lot of challenge with this. One is trying to address parents directly with their questions, but not being able to share due to the Mass General Law around what's protected information. But that doesn't mean that we can't have conversations or that we shouldn't have conversations.
Right.
And so those are things that I think are critical. And so those are things that just need to be, you know, I agree with Rob's comment. We need to be better. Not for the sake of being better, but we need to be better for our students, and we need to be better for families as well, right? I think one of the things that is particularly escalated in this event is kind of the anger around just not knowing, or not knowing how to ask, or not knowing who to go to. Those are things that need to be addressed, right? And you know, and there's something that I very much feel responsible for. So yes.
I think that was, yeah, that's it. I mean,
Any other questions for Kevin around policy? Go ahead, Tom.
It's not, well, I guess it's more of a comment than necessarily a question, following up on what Kevin and Doug just mentioned. In fact, also Amy's first question. So, what I think, well, first of all, let me appreciate the work of the policy, our subcommittee. That taking this on, I know has been something that we have asked you to do, and from the beginning of this outrageous, circumstance. And as the chair explained, the type of things that are within our purview are exactly the type of things that we should be, getting a better handle on. So as you've explained, Mr. Piscardo, thank you very much for the work that the three of you are doing, as well as I'm sure the superintendent and team. So, you know, since under the thinking that, you know, subcommittees, as we know, aren't independent entities, so I would like to take Amy's first idea and propose a motion that we endorse the work and appreciate the work that the policy subcommittee is doing. And in that endorsement would be a motion, or a part of a motion, to approve the hiring of MASC. Let the superintendent and the business manager figure out where to find the $3,500. I'm not worried about the money. I'm worried about us being able to stand behind work that's being done and in a strong and united way. So if that's acceptable,
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion that we endorse the work that is being done so far and the direction that the Policy and Communication Subcommittee is taking, and specifically to approve the hiring of MASC to conduct a policy audit.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. Judy, roll call.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes?
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Baer,
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
And if I may just follow up with so obviously thanking, again, appreciating the work that's being done. It's both timely and sensitive and important. And it's also necessary. It's necessary to be reported out in this way. I want to thank the chair for putting it on the agenda and the subcommittee for being so prepared for tonight's conversation. That if you don't happen to sit on one of these subcommittees, policy or student services, you're not necessarily as close to these things. So I certainly appreciate the work that you're doing very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Doug.
I'd like to take, if I may,
Oh, good.
just my topics out of order.
Yep. Good.
So that we can hear from our younger students who have been here kind of waiting patiently. And I'd like to invite them up to the table with their principal, Matt Carter.
Welcome back, Matt, by the way.
We're very happy to be here tonight. Roar. Roar. Got it. So I do want to take a minute before we start and just thank the school committee. I really would like to thank kind of our, upper administration for their support that they've lended towards my family during a very challenging time for us. Obviously, I have received an outpouring of support from the Wakefield community. It's been outstanding. From the families to the staff to the students. When I came back, my office probably had about 250 welcome back cards in it. It's just a really, really kind of great thing to come back to. So it is a little overwhelming for us. And I know thank you probably does not extend far enough, but I really genuinely am thankful for everything that has been given to myself, my family, my wife. We're just incredibly grateful to the Wakefield community, so thank you. All right, so without any further ado, we're going to move on to our presentation. So I have two wonderful students here joining me tonight. I have Anya Hagen with me. She's a 4th grade student at Woodville. She is in Miss Perrin's class, but she is also a member of our student council. And I have Nathan Farber here with me. He is in Mr. Bouchard's class at Woodville, and he is also a member of our student council. And I'm just so excited. I asked them if they would be interested in joining me here tonight, and both of them, without hesitation, said, absolutely, Mr. Carter. So let's see how it goes. What do you think? All right, let's do it. All right, so our student council at Woodville. We have about 14 members in 4th grade. In 3rd grade, we have 42 members, which means there's a lot of interest in it. It's a little difficult, obviously, to bring 42 3rd graders together, so we definitely have to figure out more about what that looks like, how to keep students involved. But we're certainly not going to turn anyone away that wants to really kind of engage in activities at the Woodville school. So I'll turn it, I know you guys don't want to hear from me, so I'll turn it over to these two.
All right, that's right. So in student council, we have done a lot of things for Woodville. For the student council, they've done a lot of things. So one of the things is around the holiday time, we had a box out for toys, for the Toys for Tots. And the box was overflowing with so many toys and things for other kids. And it was really enjoyable to see a lot of the, just like, it was overflowing within like 2 days. Another thing we are doing is about every month we have, we write to a senior center, so we each get almost like a pen pal and write to that person, and they can write to us back, and that's really fun. And we have a Spirit Week coming up. That is next week, and we had one around Thanksgiving time, and that really just makes students happy and walking in really with a smile. Another thing that the student council does is just posters around the school. So there is like for the Spirit Week, the student council hangs up posters that says like, "Get ready for Crazy Sock Day," and whenever I come in, I'll always hear, "Hey, did you hear that there's Crazy Sock Day? I'm gonna wear these socks," and it really just makes people excited for that. And on Veterans Day, which was a few weeks ago, we had students had the opportunity to make a poster of a veteran that they know. People did friends, family members, and some people that they know. And we hung them up around the school, mostly at the bottom floor. There was a lot of them. So, Anya?
All right, and then we also have the recycling program where a few kids got picked, including me, Nathan, and a few other kids from 4th grade in the student council. And we would go to the art room, clean up all the paper scraps from the art room on Tuesdays, and then we would come down to the kindergarteners and we would clean up all their recycling because they can't take it out, and we would put it in the bin and then come back up to class. So that was really fun. I think definitely helps out the little kids and the art teacher. Definitely takes a few things off their plate. And then we also have the Woodville cleanup crew. I don't know much about that, but I guess some kids come in over the weekend and got to clean up all over Woodville, got to clean up, like kind of recycle, but also got to clean up the art room, some other classrooms, the gym, music room. I guess they got to do that, so that seemed fun. And then some things that we've been working on in Woodville, we have over like the 4th grade, we have research projects, which is, I know my class and a few other classes in 4th grade have done research projects about a bunch of extreme weathers, including tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, tsunamis, and earthquakes, I think.
Yes.
And then we also have opinion writing. I know a few classes for opinion writing got to write to like celebrities. I know you got to do celebrities, which isn't really opinion writing. I think you got to do.
Yeah, you would write and say like, "In my opinion."
Oh, okay. Okay. I was like confused when we did opinion writing. And then a few other classes got to write about like whether kids should have a phone or not, or whether they should be rewarded for chores, etc. And then we also have a new math curriculum. I think it's definitely easier. I know a lot of kids have enjoyed like doing the partner groups,
and then I'll bring it over to you. So during the school day and sometimes during snack time or lunchtime, kids in the older grades will go down and read to younger grades. But this starting this year, I think, a lot of younger kids, we had a second grader come into our class and read Dogman to us. And one of my friends in another class said that there was two kindergartners who came in and read like a storybook that they made. And they're doing reading buddies. I think grade 3 and kindergarten are doing reading buddies. And they're always coming out with smiles on their face, and it looks really fun. And starting a few weeks ago, we had peer leaders come in and talk about bullying. And then also they came out for lunch with us and did recess with us. And so we also are having high school helpers come into our classes. And we had those a few years ago, but since of COVID, it stopped. And we have them back again. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, aren't they just the best? Aren't they just the best? So we do a few things around the school just to kind of build culture. So we're really kind of big on the bear theme, right? Just trying to kind of circle around kind of that community sense and feel. We do announcements every morning. With announcements is the pledge. We do it together. We do Bears of the Week. So students have the opportunity to earn Bear of the Week, right? Which is just a recognition for like good and good deeds. I think a lot of times in school, unfortunately, the focus kind of gets, shifted to maybe the negative. It's important to kind of bring out the positive in kids and really encourage that growth in them. We also do Faculty Bears of the Week, which is kind of more of a silly thing that staff, they probably would say they, don't enjoy it as much, but I think it's awesome, so we keep it in play. One of the things we do around the school to kind of get attention is pause up, right? Again, building on that theme. So instead of, a lot of elementary schools will say, stop signs or hands up to kind of get attention. We say pause up, just kind of a cute little thing. We have a fantastic PTO. Just an unbelievable PTO. We're so very, very blessed to have them. So I definitely wanted to give them a shout out here tonight. And then just in terms of academics, we're really kind of a school on the up and up. So if you look at just our MCAS data, we scored above state level in ELA and math in 3rd and 4th grade. Not a lot of schools can kind of boast that, right? So we're really excited with kind of what's to come for us. We're not there yet, right? But we're getting there, right? And we're seeing a lot of positivity in what we're doing, and I'm just really excited for what the future holds. And like I said, 2 shining examples right here of kind of, day in, day out, what we do here at Woodville. So I do want to say thank you to both Nathan and Anya. And like I said, I couldn't be more proud of them, but more proud of the work that's happening at Woodville School.
One more thing.
Sure.
So, a few weeks ago, we welcomed back Mr. Carter, and everybody loved it. Once they heard that, they were like, "Oh yeah!" And someone in my class used we made posters and cards, and they used like a giant poster board. I think it was like humongous, and drew all over it Canadian flags. We're doing like elves of Mr. Carter, Mr. Beebe, and Miss Ortsis, and like coming back from lunch, we're all like looking out for the elves, and it's just really fun and really makes other kids that may be having a bad day like turn it over and be having a good day.
I'm gonna add on to that real quick. With the cards, we had lunch in your office today to prepare for this, and you walk into his office and you just see cards everywhere. My entire class, when we heard that we were doing cards like a day or a few days before, and you just saw kids had like these big poster boards. They went to Five Below and got all this stuff, and they had like I know a girl in my class who sits right across from me had like this full on like she drew what she was gonna do and then made like I know Ellen, she made like a full card that pops up when you look at it and had like this big banner that said welcome back Mr. Carter, and like the little kids even helped it, and like it was just you walk in there and it puts a smile on your face. So that's definitely very positive. See what I did there?
I do.
Definitely a positive note.
I do.
Matt, your two proteges have officially taken over.
Yep, they brought it home, and honestly, the smile they put on my face every day is well worth it. So, no, I'm very proud of them.
So we would like you to come to every school committee meeting
Seriously.
for the next several years.
I have a feeling we will
Good
see
stuff.
them in a few years in a different capacity. Thanks, guys, for coming. Does
Great
anybody
update.
have any questions for our students?
So Anya and Nathan, do you think school committee could come visit you at your school?
Yeah, whenever you guys want.
All right.
Well, it's up to you.
You're no longer the boss.
You'll have 2 wonderful tour guides, and like I said, I have 428 other tour guides sitting there ready to help you too. So whenever you want to come by, you're more than welcome.
Great.
Awesome.
We'll make it a date.
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank
Great
you
job,
guys.
you guys. Great job.
And Matt, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be back.
Yes.
That was possible.
Okay.
So I'd like to continue to take my items out of order, if that's okay.
That is fine.
I'd like to give Andrew Tetrault, I'd like to introduce Andrew Tetrault from Galvin Middle School. All right, he is the assistant principal at Galvin. He's here on Zoom. He's here this evening to talk about a Galvin school trip.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lyons. I'm not sure how I follow that all up after the Woodville kiddos, but I guess they'll be coming to the middle school someday, so that's good.
Yeah.
Just in
Yeah.
that's right.
Next year.
They'll be running the middle school. They won't be coming to the middle school.
That's true. I'm going to try to be incredibly thorough, incredibly, informative through this process. I want to be super honest and transparent, and obviously hope to answer any questions that anyone has tonight about this. I think, the hope, right, is that I can present this information to everyone, and, potentially tonight get either the okay or whatnot for these trips to happen, and if that can't happen, totally understand it, and we need to figure out maybe what our next steps would be, just moving forward. Again, just trying to be completely honest and transparent. So I see the slides, so this is good. I also have a little handout for my own purposes here, so I don't get lost. But so whoever's running the slides, good luck staying with me. And we'll go to the first one, just to give a little history in case anyone on the board might not know. Our school here at the middle school, we do 4 overnight trips, one for every grade. We've historically done that. And in the 7th grade, we've gone to New York City, and in 8th grade, we go to Washington, D.C. We have done this. New York is a 3-day, 2-night, and traditionally, we used to go right before April vacation. We used to do the Thursday, Friday, Saturday before April vacation. We've used tour companies from EF and more recently to the Go Educational Tour Company. We've been going since 2016, which it's been a while. And then over on the 8th grade side, we've gone to, like I said, DC. That has been a 4-day, 3-night trip. And usually it happens in the beginning weeks of June, kind of an end of the year culmination for them. We've used World Strides, we've used EF as well, we've used Go Educational Tours. We've been going for since 2015, since we kind of re-kicked it back up. And the cost between both of those trips have been somewhere in the $600, $700 range, just to give some history to those. You know, the COVID impact, kind of the next thing, right? I think we all know what happened as a result, right? COVID hit, and we had to make some changes and cancellations back in 2020. So on our next slide here, in 2020, we were planning on going during April vacation. Schools closed down. We all know this. We know the story. And so the trips were canceled that year. We all may know, or maybe some of us were a part of it. You know, reimbursements and getting money back from families was hectic. It was cumbersome. There was a lot of questions. There was frustrations happening. I think you know, none of us really knew what was happening during that time. Obviously, we have a little bit of perspective now. But come 2021, so last year, we didn't even run any of the trips as we wouldn't have. And so just to give a little context, right, the 8th graders, our current 8th graders, have not had the opportunity to do New York City last year, nor did they have the opportunity to do Nature's Classroom, because that too was canceled back when we emergency shut down. And our current 7th graders, they were able to actually squeeze in Borndale their 5th grade year, but obviously they didn't do Nature's Classroom last year. And so, in addition to, you know, just the last thing, we all know this though, with the impact of the COVID, you know, kind of crisis we're dealing with still in the midst of, you know, there's just been a lot of social opportunities that's been missed out by a lot of the students and kids here. And so, you know, since 2020, we really haven't had a chance to really celebrate some of those social milestones that we like to do at our school. You know, Mr. Carter talked about you know, the culture at schools and whatnot, and that's kind of a big thing at the middle school. So moving forward, in the next slide, I wanted to find out some information about, like, what can we do? Can we even do anything? What would it look like? And if we were going to investigate it, how can I get as much information as possible to present and see if this is a feasible thing? You know, I sent out a couple of surveys, and on the next slides, I'll just quickly show some highlights about them. I first found out and asked the staff at the Galvin if we were to do these trips in 7th and 8th grade, is there a willingness, is there an openness to help chaperone it? We've always used staff to chaperone. And so you can quickly see there, I don't know if you have handouts as well, but 75% of the staff surveyed, we had 56 responses, which is about half teachers. 75% of our staff are saying that they would supervise, you know, at least one of the trips. And so that's a fair amount. You can also see it breaks down a little bit more about, yes, if my schedule allowed, I'll do the DC, or I'll do the New York City. But basically, with this information, we're able to meet the guidelines of a 10-to-1 ratio with you know, students to staff. We're pretty confident that we'd be able to get the staff, given our school size, to support either of these trips. The next survey, I wanted to find out if there was an appetite with families in the 2 grades. Would they even want to send kids? Is this something they want to pursue? Are we there yet? Are we not there yet as a school, as a society, a district, whatever it may be? First one you're looking at there is the 7th grade survey. Real quick, we had 170 responses from families in 7th grade. And you can see 84% of the families are really interested in sending their children in 7th grade to New York City. You can see the blue and the red there. Absolutely, my 7th graders would go no matter what, or most likely my 7th graders would go. Again, just some data and facts to try to figure out if this is worth doing. Should we pursue it? The other slide will show the 8th grade. Again, I surveyed the 8th grade families. 136 responses. There, 88% of the families are really interested in having their students do the DC trip, which, you know, I think when you have kids, we've learned in the last couple of years in 8th grade, right, there is that sense of, like, this is it for them. This is the last chance they're going to be with this particular cohort of kids, because some kids go off to the high school, some kids go to the Vogue, right? We know the whole gamut. And so some sort of celebratory end of the year thing, I think, as parents, we've heard loud and clear, at least from us, that is something that they'd like their kids to be a part of. I'm sorry, Mr. Markham, Did you have your hand raised? I can't tell.
No.
Oh, okay. All right, phew.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I can only see Mr. Boudreau. Looking great, Mr. Boudreau.
Thank you. You'll never look better, Andrew.
Thank you. The next slide just shows kind of, so I said, all right, let me see what I can find out about travel companies. Are they even a thing right now? What's going on? And so I reached out to some known travel companies. World Strides is a pretty familiar one. EF, ACES is one that were French students when they would go to Quebec would use ACES, and another travel company called Grand Classroom. I met with them over Zoom, a couple of different reps. For all of them, I got bids for them all and plans about kind of like what they would do and what their COVID protocols are and the whole gamut. Ultimately, I just decided to go with World Strides for the reasons there. It's a known entity. We have used them in the past. It was one of the first ones we've used. Some of their safety protocols, they're educationally driven to really make it an educational trip, which I think, if I had to be honest, we were losing a little bit of that sense with our previous years. And so I wanted to kind of come back to that. That was a big thing with our staff. And the economic value of the bid was better than any of the other ones. EF only flies, for example, right now. EF is only flying. And so, kids from Colorado might make sense going out to Washington, D.C., but it doesn't, we're going to probably lose out on the bidding just because we only fly and they were much more expensive. EF, ACES as well was more expensive. Grand Classroom was more expensive as well. And World Strides, kind of used a couple of different scholarship opportunities. So, nuts and bolts. Next thing, all right? Next slide. This is what I want to present and show you guys, everyone here, and just lay it all out. I've been in communication with Emily Pritchard. She works for World Strides, and so this is what we're looking at. Should we be able to have the blessing to do these trips in 7th and 8th grade? The date there, June 1st through 3rd, and the cost there is different. I've gone back to Emily Pritchard. I have an updated cost, and part of it is this. She was including in that bid making every family that signs up for these trips, New York or Washington, they would have to automatically enroll in the insurance. Okay, that would be the insurance plan that they put forth. You can see it there, the full refund program. I wasn't sure if we could do that. To be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't sure if we could say like you had to do this, or if we wanted to do it. What would the insurance cover? This is what it would cover. If for New York City, it would be $99. And if someone, for whatever reason, literally the day of, it could be COVID, it could be sickness, it could be family emergent, whatever, doesn't even matter. They will get all of their money back less than $99. The $99 kind of enrolls it in there. Over on the DC side, I think that is a typo. It says 99. That is not accurate. It's 125 for the insurance. So they would get everything back less 125. So I wasn't sure if we wanted to add that in there. It is not mandatory by World Strides rules that we have to do it. She just wanted to present it. She did say, based on everything that has happened with COVID, like everyone takes the insurance now just because. So the price differential would be, if we weren't going to do the insurance, for New York City, it would be $768, and for DC, it would be $839. All right, so I think it's different there.
Andrew, could I ask you a question? Could you make it optional for parents to take it or not, or does it have to be one or the other?
Great question. Absolutely can be optional. It can be, I didn't want to say that you had to do it, but obviously it could be optional. It could be for one parent. It could be for 100 parents. It would be up to them. It's just some school districts are forcing it to happen. The other thing World Strides does not do is they don't go through a separate insurance agency, like a third party, which we kind of fell into that trap with our previous. They do it all through themselves. You're going to get a World Strides rep that's going to give out the should we ever have to cancel, that would give out the refund. Disclaimer, they are operating out of 12-week reimbursement, which is, I don't know if that's normal or not, but she said it's 12 weeks roughly. There's a couple of other different things there. There's scholarships. You can see and read through it there, I think, hopefully, right? There's scholarships available. There's a sign-up bonus of $50. So if we happen to go through this, if we get the okay, we'll do a Zoom night for parents. We'll give them all the information, the code and whatnot. And if parents sign up and say, yeah, I want my kiddo to do this, they'll get a $50 signing bonus, I call it. I don't know, a signing bonus that will come off the total of their bill. So that's something there. We also, World Strides, I was able to work with them to get a free trip for every 50 kids that sign up. So it'll be one free trip for us to use as an administration to give out in scholarship. We can break it up and give out 50% scholarships to some. We can break it up and do 25. We can break it up and do, right? So however we might need to for the kids. You can see the lodging, the transportation will be bus. The lodging is a hotel, and the itinerary is almost identical to things that we've done in the past, which is kind of amazing in both situations, New York City and Washington, D.C. I only have 2 more slides, and then I'm open for questions. Next slide is just some other financial information. I said it early, just now, the $50 discount, various scholarships, 1 free trip. Parents can also separately inquire about financial assistance through a FLAG program that they have, the FLAG Foundation, and she will talk more about that should we be allowed to go. And when we do the presentation, they can also be like, families can gift, which has been a popular thing. Friends, families can gift a donation on like an account to be like, oh, I'll throw $50 towards my nieces, my nephews, whatever it may be, trip. And obviously right there, the disclaimer, we're going to work with any family. That's always been true. Any family that really has a passion of sending their kiddo on this trip, we want to work with. We want to try to make it possible for them. Last, COVID procedures. Here's the big thing. Okay. So World Stride protocols. Some of these things are just their rules. This is what they have in place. So that's something that, I think everyone, we would have to discuss and talk about. All people that want to attend the trip, all people, staff, students, must produce a negative COVID test 72 hours before departure, which is kind of, right now we're in that norm anyway. If you want to go places and different things, Nutcracker, whatever it may be, like you got to produce a negative test. Home test will not be valid. It has to be, whether it's a PCR test, whether at a doctor's office, walk-in clinic, whatever it might be. Masks are required at all times on the bus, in hotel lobbies, and in hallways, so those common areas, and inside buildings. Social distancing is as best as possible. Obviously, first thing that came to my mind was like, well, the bus, right? And so there are some situations in which social distancing would be hard. That's just a given, but Emily was like, when we are going on these trips, there is some sort of like known risk involved with going, and people would have to be either okay with that or understanding of that. Any person who becomes COVID symptomatic while on the trip, symptomatic, will be tested through World Strides. They'll get a test there. If a person actually becomes COVID positive while on the trip, the person will be isolated from the group and placed in a separate hotel room at the travel company's expense. They will put up 1 student, 10 students, 100 students. Oh, I hope it would never be that, but I'm just saying that is their policy. That's how they are handling it. They've gone on a bunch of trips, they've already said, and this has only happened once. That's what she said to us. In that situation, a parent or guardian would need to pick up the student. The Galvin protocol. This is my recommendation, our recommendation. I spoke to teachers, been asking a couple a little bit. Our recommendation for this would be to have a vaccine requirement to go on the trips. Now, New York City right now, December 14th, you must be vaccinated if you want to go into anything. If you want to go into a Broadway show, if you want to go have dinner, if you want to go shopping, you have to show your vaccine card as of right now. I don't know if that's going to change or whatnot. So New York City is kind of taking that out of our hands. I don't know if we'll be okay with that. I don't know if we're not okay with that, but that's where we're at. And talking to the staff and the administration, I think we might get into a little bit of a dicey situation if it was, well, we have to do this for New York City. Why would we not do it for Washington, D.C.? That was much longer than I wanted it to be, everyone. I apologize. But that's the end. I just want, I'm giving the information to everyone. I don't know if there's discussions or if you need more answers to any questions that you might have. I'd be happy to try to answer them with whatever I have and whatever I got.
So thank you for putting that together. That's quite the presentation.
Yeah, that was
I
good.
feel like you did your due diligence.
I did as much as I could with what, to try to answer all the questions. You all know you've been living this and trying to answer all the questions, and you're like, I think, and there were more questions that came up, but for right now, for what I have, that's what we got. And obviously, I don't want to rush this and be like, time is of the essence, but if this is going to happen, families need to plan for it. They need to know. They need to start getting ready for it, maybe saving up, however that might be. The holidays are here. And I don't know, Emily said, listen, she's got us slated for these times, but the longer we wait, the same prices might be different. Things might not be available. And I was like, I understand, but I have to go to the board. I have to do all those steps first to find out if this is even possible. So I'll stop talking. I'm going to mute myself.
That's never going to happen.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, and then to discuss from there. I'd like to make a motion that the school committee authorize the administration to proceed in continuing to plan to host New York City and Washington, D.C. trip for grades 7 and 8 respectively in June of 2022 as presented, and that any significant changes to this presentation would be reported back to the school committee.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion or questions?
Just point of order, you said June. I think one of the trips is in April and one is in June.
They're
I
both in
thought they
June.
were both in June.
They're both in June.
Sorry.
In the past, Amy,
Oh,
they
in the
have
past
been.
it was in
past,
April.
they've been
Okay.
in April.
Thank you.
Well, one thing I didn't do on the motion, and Andrew, was as much a question for you, is I didn't put the dates attached, thinking that you may have to, would you rather not have the month of June in there, and just say spring of 2022? I mean, I think we don't really care, frankly, do we, when the dates are? You guys have to figure that out, but I don't want to lock that in if that's.
So, no, I appreciate that. So I think we're pretty committed on June. I had asked,
Okay.
believe it or not, I've inquired about the Memorial Day weekend and all that kind of stuff. That's actually a blackout weekend for them. And so some of the times and dates, and it was expensive. So once we hit June 1st and through June, it was a little bit more realistic. Given everything going on, I think June is probably a safe bet to do.
All right, 'cause I purposely did not put the dates in June to give you whatever flexibility, but did say June. Okay.
Mike?
A question, Andrew, do you need us to make a decision on whether the vaccines will be mandated for the trip in order to approve or disapprove this?
So, I don't know that answer. I guess I don't know. If that is, I want it to be transparent and say so where are we? I don't know what that's going to open the door for any type of other situations or whatnot. I do think, if the board wanted to just say, we trust staff, but depending on whatever New York City rules are, or whatever the travel company is, we have to do this, but I wasn't sure what the actual rules were. No, I don't even know if any of us really know, because they are changing all the time.
Andrew, just to add to that, you're kind of you really have to just comply with whatever the city rules are based on the places that you're going to go, because you would hate to have it be that those rules aren't followed and then a student makes the journey and then can't participate. So I think it is the language more just in compliance with the rules and the requirements of the places that will be visited.
I think that makes sense too, because who knows what will happen. I mean, what if Washington either goes strict, right, or not, right? Like, so I think that maybe the wording would be defaulting to whatever the rules, regulations are of that city or state destination. Kara, I think that was you, Kara, that was talking.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see me. Yep.
Mike, let Mike finish this. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry. So Andrew, so obviously the only decision to make is Washington. New York's kind of by default, you have to be vaccinated. So in Washington, currently, in order to go into some of those facilities, are vaccines mandated, or is it not the case? It is not. Okay.
It is not mandated like it is in New York City.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Stephen?
Andrew, I was just curious, when you were taking polls sort of teachers and parents where you see this sort of this overwhelming support for the trip, were they presented with some of these, what the procedures would look like, or was it before you developed the procedures?
Great question. It was before I developed the procedures or found them out. I just wanted to find, because if a lot of parents were going to be like, no, we're not ready yet. I wasn't going to start having a bunch of Zoom meetings with a bunch of travel companies if there really wasn't an appetite to go. But that's why I tried to tease that out with one of the responses was like, yes, I'm going to send them no matter what. And I was like, if someone's going to put that, I feel like they're going to, short of it being incredibly expensive. I did have comments, by the way, that people, should they have a question, they typed in, and those were some of the majority of, I hope kids will have to be masked. I hope that kids will either have to be vaccinated. Hopefully, economically we can keep this in check. And so those were some of the main things that were repeated throughout with the open comments from parents.
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, we don't mandate vaccines for the kids to come into our schools, so maybe it's hard to require that for a trip as well. I don't know, just a thought.
I think highly recommending the vaccine requirement based on the fact that in New York City you're going to have it is language that you could use, and the fact that you don't know what it's going to look like 6 months from now. But I agree, Mike. I'm not sure that we can mandate it, but I think we can highly recommend it based on what you know about New York and what could happen. And I think as a committee, all we're doing is giving Andrew the opportunity to go put it out in front of parents, right? Because you went out without price, protocols, any of that. So I think my feeling is we should let Andrew go do that and see kind of what happens. That those prices are $200 more than what they were 3 years ago, right? So that's a big chunk of money. It'll be interesting to see if you get the same level of interest when people have kind of the details. But I think we need to let you do that. Kevin?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. I'm very enthusiastically support this opportunity. It's one of those things students remember for years to come, and if we can do it, I think it's wonderful considering kind of the situation we're under. I have a couple questions, I'm not sure if you can answer them per se. You discussed the insurance, which I think is pretty critical. We just don't know where kind of the variant or the next variant to come, et cetera, and what may happen. So I would be a proponent of including the insurance in the price, because I'm wondering, is the insurance cover if we cancel the trip? So we decide as a school district, or you all decide rather as the school leaders, to cancel this trip. Does that insurance also kick in? And does the insurance in general cover any reason or only medical?
Great question, and I actually asked that to Emily, and I said, so let's say there's a tragedy in our district. I didn't say, but there was something that happened in the district, and we as a district just can't go, and the trip is canceled because we have to. Full refund, less that 99 or 125.
Yep. So
that was part of the reasons why I also went with World Strides. It doesn't have to do with just sickness. It could be, again, we could be going and there's a water main break at a house. Speaking of water main breaks, there's a water main break at a house, and a family just can't send it. They got to figure it all out. That family would be able to cancel and get their money back, less the insurance.
Excellent.
Great point,
And I'm,
Kevin.
yeah, thank you. I'm knocking on wood with all those examples you just gave. Tragedies, breaks. My other question is, if a student were to test positive, you said they'll be isolated from the group, a separate hotel room, and a guardian would come pick them up. I assume a staff member would always be with them until that parent, because even if it's at the end of the trip, like depending timeline, a staff member would always be with one of the students, right?
Always, yes. Some staff member would stay. And it's actually happened, not with COVID, but it actually happened on the New York trip and involved me. I was there and I stayed with the kiddo all night long while he wasn't feeling great, waited for his mom to come and get him. While the rest of the trip carried on, right? They went throughout the city. So I think would happen in this situation as well.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you for even making this possible.
I just have two questions.
Go ahead, Amy.
Is there a minimum or a maximum that they would run this trip? Like if you only had 25 students or families interested, would they only run it at 25?
Yeah, yes, there is a minimum, and I thought it was 45. Where is my paperwork? I'm pretty sure it's 45. Let me double check on it.
No, I don't need to know that. I just was curious if you only had like 25 families sign up, would they still run it that low?
So that's a better question. If it's that low, I'm not sure. All the prices are dependent on, it said 45 paying attendees. So my guess is, right, if there was only 25, would we still run it? I would say yes, but I don't know if it's for that price.
Yeah.
So.
And then is there a max, or would they take the whole grade?
They would take the whole, there is no max.
Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness gracious. That'd be fantastic. It would be a difference. That'd be different, but that'd be awesome.
And the only other thing about just the vaccines, if for the New York trip anyway, I would think everyone would need to bring their vaccination card. And if they're not fully vaccinated, given Wakefield is, let's just say we go down the road, we're not mandating it, what would you do with those students that aren't fully vaccinated in New York if they can't go in the buildings?
They can't go.
Sure, so I don't think they'd be able to go in the New York City, at least for the New York City one, right? Unless, again, I like the language about should rules change within that destination, right? Unless New York says, yep, we're not requiring it anymore, then, all right, I guess in that situation, a family could go as far as they possibly can go, and then, cancel if it got to that point that they needed to, and they would at least be able to get some money back. But I think just trying to be upfront and honest with families and parents about like the mandatory vaccination right now status in New York City.
Okay.
That's the best we can do.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks. And again, Andrew, thanks again for putting this together. I think it's certainly long overdue, and we're beginning to get back to whatever the new normal may be, but I know this is a great trip back in the day when my kids went on it. I think we might be muddying the waters by even having a conversation around the vaccination piece. Because at the end of the day, I would speculate that we, the school district, are going to sign a contract with this company, and somewhere in that language, it's going to say we have to comply with the rules of either them as the vendor or the city and the Board of Public Health that we're going to. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure we really have to complicate things. We're going to have to comply with the rules of whoever our host might be, is my guess. And so, if a parent, if New York City requires it and a family chooses, not to be vaccinated, then unfortunately that student wouldn't be able to go, right? So why should we get into something we don't need to? Is sort of my 2 cents around that. Secondly, I would, to Amy's question, and I think that's a good one, I would bet that 45 is your number because it's probably the size of a full bus. Anything less than a full bus, you can still go, but you'll raise the per person price. You're covering fewer seats. But I think this is a great idea. And thank you for putting the leadership in the mindset back into some normalcy. Thank you.
We ready to take a vote?
Tom,
Go ahead,
Tom,
Mike.
I just wanted to address, the reason I brought it up was more, if we wanted to be more conservative than the company, if they were saying you can bring anybody can come, but we wanted to make sure everybody's vaccinated. That was really the only reason I brought it up. You're absolutely right about the other alternative, though.
Okay, we ready to vote? Judy, roll call. Mike, she called you.
Mike.
I'm sorry, yes. I apologize.
Ms. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Ingles.
Yes.
Mr. Markham.
Yes.
Ms. Baer.
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo.
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
Okay.
There you
Thank
go,
you.
Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You guys are doing great. Keep it up.
Good to see you, Andrew. Take care.
Okay.
Andrew does such a nice job, such a nice job. And so he also didn't share all of the work that he did, reached out to Board of Health and did quite a bit of work just to make sure that we were doing everything that we could do to make sure COVID protocols were in place and we could accommodate students. And so there's quite a bit of preparation that he's not reporting on in regard to being here tonight presenting. So we're really fortunate to have him in our district as an administrator. Just an aside. And so I'd like to continue with your permission, Madam Chair, to continue to keep our topics out of order. I'd like to do the budget presentation now, and then I'll close with comments and updates. Christine?
Sure. So Doug and I thought tonight would be a good time. I know it's the holidays, but just to let you know about December and January is really the budget kickoff season. So what's happening this week, I know in your packet you got a draft of a timeline. So what we really tried to do is work with the town to get a timeline from start to finish of how the budget's going to be generated. So this week, we're working with putting together our capital request. So on Thursday morning, Tim would be presenting that to the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee. I'll also be working with the principals. I'm giving them budget packets. So what that includes is enrollment data, it includes salaries, it includes staffing in their buildings, it includes non-salary expenditures. So it's a complete packet of a financial picture of a building. Then we'll discuss with Finance and Facilities in early December. Also discuss our final capital submission to DPW. And then we'll invite members of subcommittee. I don't think we can invite all of school committee to the principal budget presentations. Doug and I will do a roadshow. We'll meet with principals ahead of time, but then we actually meet with all of the principals and department heads and get an idea of really what their asks are, to see what needs at the schools are not being met, and if they want to reallocate positions or any expenditure lines. Then probably by the end of January, we'll meet, Finance and Facilities Subcommittee will meet with our FinCom liaisons. So then we can kind of give them an idea of what that's looking like. The next slide. We're trying to just give you an overview about budget priorities and goals, not just for next year, but the year after. We've talked about retaining staff during labor shortages. We're talking about when we made our ESSER 3 application, what that looks like, about addressing learning loss, COVID-related needs. We're also talking about maybe a transitional K classroom. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Doug?
Yeah, so every year we really try to prioritize the highest needs. And so we know this year, and I've reported in a number of meetings, currently we've never seen a greater range of needs at grade level and in particular classes. Our K students, many of them have come to us without any experience in pre-K. And so to best support students to develop, pro-social skills and interacting with other students and kind of really giving them the foundation that they need, we're going to look at and assess the possibility of a transitional kindergarten classroom as an additional support. It's just something that we're exploring right now, but I don't want you to be surprised if you see it later on as we go through the budget cycle. We're actually have been thinking about it for some time. And so I just wanted, that's the reason you wanted to just bring it up well ahead of time.
We're also stressing extended day intervention services, and we all know how successful the Acceleration Academy was over the summer. So we're really hopeful to put that back in the budget. Summer tutoring. We know our 2.0 adjustment counselors at the middle and high school are currently funded by ESSER 2. We want to make sure that finds its way into the fiscal 23 budget because ESSER 2 ends this fiscal year. Special education, I think, is going to be a driving force in this budget as well. We're going to hear a lot from Rosie Galvin when we meet with the principals about what changes are possibly coming in those areas, and always trying to keep students in district. And finally, we saw this with ESSER 3, that we have to prioritize HVAC in our school facilities. And the last slide is the big one. We're talking about negotiating 3-year contracts for fiscal 23, 24, and 25 with 6 bargaining groups. And those groups represent 30% of the total staffing of WPS, Wakefield Public Schools.
What's not represented on this slide is the teacher bargaining unit.
Right.
And the reason we have an additional year is because we had a 3-in-1 or a 4-year contract. So we will negotiate with them next year.
Right. So in an ideal world, we would wrap up negotiations during budget season, but we will see how successful we are to do that. I just wanted to give an overview of things to come. So when we come back from break, all the fun budget stuff that we'll be doing together.
Things are going to ramp up quickly.
Mm-hmm. Any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
The slide before this, what's the timeline for negotiations? When do they start?
Great question.
So we will reach out to the bargaining units in January to kind of prioritize who will go first. We will likely be negotiating with more than one unit at one time.
When is their current contract up?
So all these contracts expired this June 30th, 22.
June 30th, 2022, then the new one would start July 1.
July 1?
Right.
Okay.
For fiscal 23, 24, and 25.
Okay. And then the slide before that? Oh, wait, one more back. The principal budget presentations? Mm-hmm. You said not all, you don't think you could invite the whole school committee?
Because it would be like a meeting if every school committee member.
But isn't it public? No, it's not. Like not to attend as just an observer, not to sit there and ask questions.
So yeah, I think we haven't had the entire committee, and so that's our understanding of it. We can check with Tom Mullen, just to clarify that. Aim?
Yeah, I'd be curious who gets the tap and who doesn't.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. We've never had more than one or two one or two school committee members there total.
Yeah.
In the entire process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
I just was looking for further clarification on what a transitional kindergarten is.
What it is?
Yeah, you said like why it was there. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. So, Kara, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, I think it's just, it's in response to what Doug was saying, just a need around more time and kind of more time for students to develop skills, probably more so around the social, behavioral, kind of learning to be a student, learning the norms of the classroom. So just, again, it has to be fleshed out more in terms of the questions we have. We know there's a need to potentially change up the structure of a kindergarten day to allow for more time to build foundational skills for a lot of our students coming in who didn't have a preschool experience or had one that was cut short. A lot of the preschool early childhood standards are focused on that peer-to-peer interaction, play skills, social development, communication skills. a lot of which our students, our current kindergartners, were denied during COVID. And I think we're trying to recognize that as a real thing that is impacting not only this kindergarten class, but the kindergarten class coming up, and potentially the one after that. But where it flushes out is in terms of identifying which students would benefit from something such as this. And what I think we're envisioning is maybe the staffing setup might be a little bit different. The class size might be a little bit smaller. Maybe the schedule has a different structure to it. Not that we would, lower academic expectations, but just maybe that they'd be taught in a different way. So just give us a little bit more space to meet students where they're at and support their development. That's just kind of like the high level idea behind it. But as Doug said, we were just on a call this morning with principals. We need to meet with the elementary principals. Shannon Blacker from the Doyle. Love to meet with current kindergarten teachers and get their feedback. I mean, we've all touched base with kindergarten teachers here and there, and are hearing some of the more informal feedback. But just to get a sense of, if we were to do something like this, like who are the students that would benefit from it? What ideally should it focus on? How ideally would it be staffed? So all the detailed pieces need to be fleshed out, but that's like the high level idea behind it.
I was thinking it was like something going into kindergarten or coming out, but you're sort of reviewing the resources in an existing sort of space in the school year.
Exactly.
And how that might work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
But how would that be an inclusive class? Like if you don't have model students, if you just have all kids in the lower end of the standard?
Well, so that's the idea with maintaining current, I think academic expectations post-COVID, just are different. Not to say that they're lower, but that they're different. So we would want it to be an inclusive kindergarten classroom. But I think that's where we just look at class size numbers, maybe look at staffing, look at opportunities. So that it's the detail pieces that need to be fleshed out. That's my understanding, because I know that we want it to be, we want it to be an inclusive model.
And again, right now we're collecting information on this.
Right.
And it's done a number of different ways in a number of different districts that we are learning about and learning from what their experiences are like. And some of the models we think are really exceptional, and some we think have some room for growth. So that's kind of what brings us here. And again, we have a ways to go. Rosie needs to weigh in on this. Our K teaching staff need to weigh in on this. And they're a group that really has some insights into this that we need to capture in our budget process. So.
I think I'm just thinking of a kindergarten program that I was familiar with that was done really well. And it's just, again, it's about, kind of controlling the makeover of the class as well as the staffing. And then just really specifically targeting what are the skills that need, additional time, or what's the learning environment look like. Maybe it's a whole learning environment is modified in a different way. So those are the pieces that would be connected to it, staffing and classroom.
So one of the questions I had was on the traditional K. So thank you for asking and answering that one. The other thing I was going to respectfully suggest that you probably can invite all 7 members of the school committee.
Okay.
I would think that you're hosting the meeting as the superintendent. It's not a school committee meeting. It's a superintendent's meeting that you should be able to invite people to. We know we won't be convening.
Yep.
Won't be conducting business. I know that prior to this is not a new concept, but we've had not recently, but we've had more than just a couple school committee members attend in the past.
Okay.
So certainly confer with Tom Mullen, but I believe that this is a superintendent's meeting, not a school committee meeting, and no business being conducted. I think we can, because I think it's important that, especially going into next year, that all people are fully in the loop and conversational with these topics.
Got it. Other questions? No?
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So just kind of closing out with comments and updates. I appreciated the student comments from the high school to start off. Maggie kind of reported today that Katie Greer was here at the high school. Yesterday she was at Galvin, and we had her scheduled to come in. I think we accelerated that process in light of what was kind of taking place here at the high school. And we wanted to give students just some information and an opportunity to be able to hear from someone other than their teachers just around what's happening on social media. And I think Maggie did a great job summarizing what they heard today. I think one of the things that we're learning is that a presentation, someone talking or presenting to students is part of this. But the other parts of this is that we need to create smaller venues where students can talk to one another and to adults about what's happening with social media and what's happening with kind of phone use, right? And so one of the things that we've shared is that, you know, the taking of pictures, video, and text is how students socialize. It is a currency that they exchange. It's how they exchange information. They pass things on that they find interesting. They pass information on. Sometimes that content is created by individual students, where they're sharing information or sending text. Other times they're just sending something that they find interesting that they might have picked up or that might have been shared with them. You know, the difficult part with that is, you know, sometimes when those things are taken out of context or when they're misused or when, you know, and so we really need to make sure the kids are aware of some of the dangers with some of the things that they might see or that they might pass on. And so it's really particularly a focus of the social media work that's happening with Katie Greer. She talks a lot about awareness, being aware of what you're sharing, being aware of levels of safety or who might be able to access that. But the other parts of this are really just kind of spending some time, adults spending some time during advisory, adults spending some time during different parts of the day and different parts of the year, just to really create the relationships where kids are able to share things that are difficult, what they're challenged by, what they're seeing, so that we can be thoughtful and try to adapt the learning environment to better support the needs of our students. But I think, and I think Kara can add to this as well, because she was with Katie Greer today. I don't know if you have anything to add, Kara?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Galvin presentation, and I went to the high school presentation, and I thought it was really good information, a really good overview, timely, but we just left feeling like there's still more that we can do, and there's still more education around this. And the kids are really our best advisors in the technology space in terms of how rapidly things are changing, how it's impacting their lives. You know, like, I know that we had a meeting with the Board of Health, Catherine Dingray and Kara Showers, and just to talk about the work that the Youth Action Team is doing in this space. And they're trying to put together surveys to just get more of a sense of the content that our students are being exposed to, how it's impacting them, how it's impacting their mental health. So we've also just trying to dig in a little bit more to our curriculum in health and STEM and figure out if there's natural areas to build in more education. But it's a lot, and I think you know, we're all just trying to do the best we can and keep up. But there's more work to do.
There is absolutely more work to do. In regard to the events that happened at the high school, I think some things have, you know, our counseling or our counselors have collaborated with Elliott Trauma Center, and I think that our counseling has been positive in this space. I do think we need to engage parents more to drill down on actionable work that they would like to see happen, right? So when they ask questions about what policies, I know Rob, for example, attended the Policy and Communication Subcommittee meeting, which is, you know, we're happy to see him there. We had another parent also join Rob and attend the meeting. So, changing policies, addressing kind of how cell phone use is listed in the handbooks are things that we are going to continue to do and look at, but not just look at in regards to the editing of the language that might be in a policy, but also what that might look like in practice. So there is more to be done there, and we will keep you all abreast of what we are doing. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that before I move on in my reporting. Okay, thank you. So just an update in regard to COVID. In the last few weeks, our COVID numbers have really taken a significant jump. Last week, we were kind of in the 50s. This week, as of today, we are at 59 with 52 students and 7 faculty members. We are quarantining 131. So our numbers, like I said, last week were at 50, which the week before we were at about 25. So we've doubled, and we've taken another kind of big jump. So it's also increasing and putting a kind of a bit of a load on our test and stay and the work that our nurses are doing. They've just been phenomenal in adapting and trying to meet the needs of students and families. How many tests have we given this week?
So today's Tuesday, and we've done 215 tests.
For test and stay?
In 2 days. Yeah.
So with Monday and Tuesday, 215 tests. So if we have 59 students that are positive, let's say they weren't part of test and stay, we haven't had any positive cases this week. So the students, those 215 students are testing and remaining in school and not quarantining. Right. So I always make that distinction because I feel like that's a plus and a positive in the program of keeping students in school. So that's a quick note on our COVID data. Yes, Michael?
Doug, not that I'm advocating we make any changes at this point, given where the trend seems to be going, but I'm curious what the vaccination rate is. Have you guys been able to wrap your hands around that lately?
I think we have.
So we're currently working with staff to collect vaccination data, because what's happening now is without proof of vaccination, we've implemented starting this week that staff submit weekly negative COVID tests if they are in fact not vaccinated. So that has been rolling out. We're not quite at the 80% yet, Mike. I know that's the goal. We're hovering about 77, 78%. But within the last week, I think we've collected an additional 40 additional COVID proof of vaccination cards. So every week we're gathering more. So we're heading in the right direction.
What at the middle school, Christine?
That's district-wide. That's for staff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's staff, Mike.
That's staff district-wide.
That's staff,
Okay.
Michael.
Sorry.
So our numbers at the high school with students, I think we're at 77%.
Mm-hmm.
And at Galvin, it's considerably lower, but it's increasing very rapidly. So we're pleased. And in talking with Anthony Choi at Board of Health, he shares that the numbers are really going well in the 5 to 11 age group. So we'll have more information in our next meeting. Yes?
If I'm remembering correctly, students that have been vaccinated, are fully vaccinated, do not need to quarantine?
Students that are fully vaccinated, 2 doses, and that are not symptomatic.
Okay.
Do not need to quarantine if they're a close contact. Okay? And so, so that's accurate.
And they're not part of test and stay.
Right.
And they're not correct.
Do we have any data on maybe why the numbers are so high? Do you think it's because of Thanksgiving, or?
In talking with Anthony Choi, I think it's happening across the state and across the country, and I think they attribute it to the amount of travel over Thanksgiving break. So, which is a little worrisome, because now we're entering the Christmas break, so it's like a bubble on a bubble, right? And so we're concerned about the numbers, and we have a meeting tomorrow with an update from Jeff Riley from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and our feeling there is that he's likely to extend the mask mandate likely through February. I think if we can get our numbers down and our positive case numbers down and our kind of vaccination rates just up a little bit, I think we could get the high school out of masks, which would be great. Yeah, which would be great.
I have a quick question. How are we doing on substitutes with that many staff out? Okay.
So we have 7, I just reported 7 staff cases.
Yeah.
It depends on the school and
Oh,
depends on
okay.
the level. Sometimes in some of our spaces, I think we're doing better than others.
Okay.
We're also having different people in different places substituting for their peers. So one of the things, we're short substitutes across the board.
Right.
At every level. But one of the things that I think we've done pretty well is we've had staff cover for one another. I think that they've really been remarkable in that way. So,
Okay.
but there's a shortage, Amy, across.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a quick update on COVID. Just other information. We know on December 5th there was a community fire on 95 Audubon. Right, it's Sunday, December 5th. That has impacted a number of our families. We want to thank Catherine Dingra, who's been an amazing resource for families that have been impacted by the fire. And we also want to kind of give a shout out to our school administrative teams that have, a lot of work that happens with our school administrators is done beneath the radar. They don't draw a lot of attention, but they have been particularly supportive in helping families get what they need under these circumstances. So, and it's heartbreaking to see families that are put up in hotels or during the holiday, but if the cup is half full, they're safe. So I think that they're grateful that they weren't harmed or persons were not family and families were not harmed during that fire. We also need to thank the Wakefield Fire Department in regard to their support as well. I think they've been amazing. So just a quick community note there. Another note.
Hey, Doug?
Yes, sir.
Doug, I'm sorry. Isn't there a fund that people can contribute to in relation to the families?
There is, Mike. It's been sent out at the school level. So I didn't want to make a community announcement in that because some of them have kind of reached their limits. But I think that's being handled by administrators at the school level. And so just other notes, snow days. So I know I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I know it's been 50 degrees outside. I ran out today, no jacket, and I thought, this is terrific. 50 degrees, no jacket. Snow days are coming, and we will be practicing traditional snow days so far, just so that people know. We want to give people plenty of advance notice. These are old school snow days. You'll get an announcement on the phone. It will be sent out a couple of different ways. It'll be on social media. It'll be sent out via text, via phone, and you'll get an email as well. But when that happens, at this point, unless Commissioner Riley kind of changes this up, we do not get credit for remote instruction or for asynchronous work that's done on snow days any longer. So we will be going back to traditional snow days. When we have a snow day, it's a day off. We will add that day to the calendar at the end of the year. And so that's the old practice. I know some people are like, what, we add a day? We really do. And so some of our new teachers have never experienced this as a teacher, like, but I have a trip. Well, we're working, it's what we're doing. Anyway, so that's just a kind of an informational piece for families. Tomorrow's the 15th, which will be the student forum, the first of 2 forums for the mascot work that's happening at the high school. So initially we had kind of looked at having 2 forums, one for students and one for the community before the winter break. But with all that's going on, we didn't want to rush just to kind of squeeze this in. So what we're doing tomorrow, we have a student forum at the early release. So that'll be tomorrow afternoon at the high school. And then on January 6th in the evening at 7 p.m. Will be the community forum. So more information will be sent out about that. After we have each forum, there'll be an invitation for the students and community members that attend, if they're interested in being part of the committee, that they can make application to be part of it. And so that's kind of more information will be forthcoming there. And so other than that, we're just kind of chipping away, prepping for winter break. And this is our last school committee before the break. So we want to wish all students and families the very best. Safe travels if you're traveling, and know that your school administrators are thinking about you, and please get some rest and enjoy the break. Thank you so much.
Doug, can you say the dates of those, that forum again?
January 6th
Okay.
for the community,
Okay.
and tomorrow is the 15th.
And for students, which student, is it only high school students?
High school students,
Okay,
correct.
not middle.
Not middle.
Okay. Is there a time and a place for the January 6th meeting yet, or no?
So it's going to happen via Zoom.
Okay.
So I should say, well, let me say this. We've talked about it via Zoom or in person. I prefer it in person, but I think one of the things that we're going to look at is COVID numbers, and we want it to be safe. We want to be safe. So so we have a date and a time, but we haven't determined if it's going to be 100% one way or the other.
Okay.
I think our first choice would be in person, but there'll be more information sent out on that, Amy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other than that, that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Okay. Move on to subcommittee updates. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just curious. So the Woodville was here tonight. Are we going to get similar presentations from other?
You are.
Awesome.
Good.
You are. I think in January, I think we're going to have Brian Schmidt, and he might, and so there's been, so a calendar is being populated right now as we speak. I had talked to Matt about this, and, I really wanted to do it with Matt to just give him an opportunity just to come back and say what he needed to say, and he's lucky he got through that, because it's, it's great to have him back, and the students, my God, right? It's a reminder why we're here, right? This is our work, and so, yeah. So the answer, Stephen, I should.
Thank you.
Yes, and you're
Thank you.
certainly welcome.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a quick finance and facilities update. We last met, I don't remember the date, I apologize. I think 2 weeks ago, Thursday, so it would have been like the 2nd. And we had some guests. Our finance committee liaisons joined our meeting. And we spent most of the time kind of doing introductions and talking a little bit about process. And one of the people that joined us is new. So we're kind of getting him up to speed and really just kind of talking about what the next few weeks look like and how we're going to work together, answering questions from them. And that was really kind of the bulk of the meeting. We did talk about some of the same things that Christine presented tonight.
Yep.
We're slated to meet this Thursday, the 16th. So that's our next meeting. Do we have an update on the high school working group, Kevin or Tom?
Not since our last meeting.
No?
I mean, there have been a continuation of the forums.
Yes. So I can share that this past Monday, we had department meetings to review individual space usage at the high school for fine and performing arts, for athletics, and for special education. And so that's a positive, because it's easy to do the classroom spaces. So, or easier, not easy, but easier. And so that, we had a meeting Monday, or three 2-hour meetings Monday. So we kind of met to review those spaces, to talk about demands. Each department, or each director, so Brandon Kent was there, spoke about athletics, and Tom Bankert also spoke about fine and performing arts, and also kind of needs in regard to all of our art programs. So I thought it was a very, very productive meeting. And in regard to special education, we talked about that as well. So one of the challenges is going to be central office, right? Because that's not part of a normal high school build. The other question would be WCAT. And so we're creatively talking about locating our TV classes closer to WCAT, so that we might be able to link the two. And if we can make the two educational spaces, it can be part of our build and our educational plan. So that's kind of one way that we might thread that needle, but more information to follow there. There's been quite a bit of work with high school building right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd say at the school building committee, the permanent building committee that we sit on, 2 weeks ago, they presented a number of different possible iterations. So they would do, okay, at this site, the model school, like what it would look like. Okay, a non-model school, if you move it to this site, a model school, non-model school. And they took us through a number of different potential iterations. And then this Thursday, permanent building committee and school building that we sit on, we'll meet again and kind of continue. So yeah, it's moving.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, we've invited Left Field and SMMA to come to our January 11th school committee meeting to share some of the information that has been collected so far. And the visuals really kind of bring it all together. And so it's actually really exciting to think of all the possibilities.
All right. Tom?
For labor, there's really nothing to share at this time. Our next meeting is January 11th.
Mike, Student Services.
Yep, so student services met yesterday. It seems like it was longer ago than yesterday, but we focused on prepping for the budget primarily. So Doug discussed with us the fact that the prioritization is based off of the ESSER survey analysis that we received back. I guess it was finalized on November 9th. So there's kind of 4 general categories of top priority that the administration is working on recommendations for in that regard. So we'll get into more details on their recommendations at our next meeting, which is on, I think it's January 5th. But Doug provided some really good context about the fact that within the budget, you know, there's not a substantial amount of money available to make significant impacts. Some impact, no doubt. I think the expectation was there might be $300,000 or $400,000 available within this context, unless we can find some alternative sources of funds through grants or things of that sort. So when we have our meeting in January, really will.
Did I say 300,000 or 400,000? Did you say 300,000 or 400,000?
Isn't that what we said?
Absolutely not.
What did we say? I thought that's what we said. Was it 3,000?
Is this meeting being recorded right now? What's happening here? We can talk more about it. So, yeah, we had talked about what we had talked about, and if we are operating roughly in a 4% budget, that contractual obligations can make up to 3% or 3.2%. So if you're looking at 0.75% or 0.8% as a fraction of 1% of the budget, that might be the money that we have available for additional positions. But we also shared, full disclosure, and Mike is not completely off. So we also shared that there's other possibilities or other ways to fund things with ESSER, and also kind of seeking the support of the town, possibly with ARP funds or additional grant money. So more to follow. So our job is to figure out how to get everything that we need within that footprint. That's that's our task. So yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Sorry if I misquoted. I was going to say 3 or 4 million.
You probably should have.
Got to start negotiation somewhere, John.
That's right.
Mike, any other updates?
No, that was the crux of it. Thank you.
Awesome. Kevin, policy.
Great, thank you. Yeah, in communications and policy, I covered a lot of what we have been talking about over the last 2 meetings. We met on the 30th, and then we met again today. Something that we started to mention earlier was we had a great presentation by one of the associates from the PR firm from Guilfoyle, who kind of talked about the types of things that they can bring and help us out with in terms of communicating. And part of it is about, crisis response and communication and those sorts of things. But what I was excited about was, the other ways we can communicate all of the great things that are happening in the Wakefield Public Schools, that just with everything else going on, there's no one who can take that on. They kind of offer a menu of services. We're going to start on the low side, and their suggestion was about 8 pieces a month. So that's an average, because some months may have less, some months may have more. But it could be a wonderful way to really highlight and tell our story about all the great things that are going on here. And I'm really looking forward to engaging in that. So that was really exciting. So he had come last meeting on the 30th, and then today we kind of continued the conversation. Tonight, our colleagues over at the Town Council and the town's work for green communities has asked us to consider the fuel efficiency vehicle policy. So we would it's a policy that Town Council had written, they had passed, and now we're being asked to do the same. So at this meeting, Mr. Markham will read the motion to place the policy on the table. It says 2 weeks. We technically are going to be 4 weeks till our next meeting, but that'll be placed on the table. Tim O'Brien did point out that, right now he sent a list of vehicles. So just to remind people that this isn't about replacing our current vehicles. It's as things potentially retire at the end of their life cycle to consider or to be required for fuel efficiency with some exemptions. And he kind of posits that most of our vehicles would actually be exempted. So it won't impact the 13 vehicles that are kind of under our control at the moment. But it's a good movement, certainly, as we move towards green communities. And so just vis-a-vis the policy subcommittee, we're going to place that policy from the town council on the table.
I move the school committee lay on the table for 2 weeks consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting the Town of Wakefield fuel efficiency vehicle policy as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Judy?
Mr. Woodville,
Yes.
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Baer,
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
Okay, so that's laid on the table. We'll vote on it. Tim will come to the meeting at the next meeting, I believe, to answer any questions. But as Kevin stated, we don't believe that there's a huge impact, but we should have Tim here to answer some questions about the current fleet that we have.
May I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
When I was reading through it, it sort of dawned on me, and I just maybe to say it up front or as a question, then clarify. This really isn't for us to attempt to amend.
No, I think it has to be.
It's the town's policy they're asking us to adopt, as is our, so it's an up or down vote, it's not a revision piece. Is that accurate?
I believe that's accurate,
Okay.
and I believe it actually is not even just written by the town, it's provided by the Green Communities organization. So if you want to be a part of Green Communities, of which most of our neighbors in the surrounding communities already are, you need to pass this policy, is my understanding.
I'm not suggesting
So,
that
no,
we shouldn't.
that's
I
no,
just
that's a
wanted to
great,
say it,
that's a
that
good
it's not-
clarification, that we can't amend
Usually
it.
what we do is we go and we sort of banter around.
Yep, yeah, this is,
Finessing language.
yeah,
That we're not doing any of that.
good call. Okay, so we've talked about our next meeting will happen on January 11th. And so we'll do school committee member comments. Mike, do you want to go first?
Sure. I wanted to recognize Stephen Ingles for sending around this Protecting Youth Mental Health report from the Surgeon General. I haven't gotten through the whole thing, full disclosure, but what I've seen seems very interesting and compelling, scary, you name it. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Amy?
Just want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday break, and that everybody is healthy and has a great time with their families.
Stephen?
Thank you again to the parents that kind of came in and read their statements and let us know sort of their thoughts about their concerns, and appreciate that. And then Andrew and the Woodville. I always love seeing the schools come in. It's so refreshing. Just quickly to what Mike was saying, the thing that I sent around was a report by the Surgeon General. It was the Surgeon General's advisory just on mental health around our adolescents and our kids. And it was fairly specific around COVID's effects on mental health. And there are some pretty concerning numbers in there about what it's doing and how our kids are feeling. So I sent it around because there are some specific actions that they call out for like districts and schools, but beyond that, for the greater population, there are sort of suggestions for communities, for caregivers, there's a lot of information there and resources to sort of help families and communities navigate what's looking like a very challenging landscape. So if you just look up Surgeon General and go to the government site, it comes up as one of the very first bullet points. It's a recent advisory.
Tom?
Thank you. I too would like to thank the parents for coming in and sharing continued concerns ongoing. Also, thanks to everyone that came and presented tonight. It was a busy night, but well managed and well prepared. Also, like to wish to the community, to those who celebrate, a very Merry Christmas, and wish everyone a safe and enjoyable holiday season and some deserved vacation time.
Amy?
I'd also like to thank the parents who came out. This was the second time parents came out and shared their concerns about the incident at the high school, and I'm just wondering if there's more that we can do. I know we have restrictions, and I know we'll work on the policies, but some of the theme that I'm hearing is there's a group of young women who are nervous and are living in limbo, and they don't feel safe. And as much as we talk about mental health, there has to be more we can do, and I'm just not sure what that is. But I do want to recognize that we hear you and we want to help. And on a happier, upbeat note, I want to thank Anya and Nathan for coming in and sharing their Woodville positivity. It was adorable, and see what I did there?
That was good.
They were very cute, and thank the parents who brought them in too. So, and welcome back, Mr. Carter.
That was funny. That was very good. I too want to thank anybody who comes and shares their thoughts and opinions and lived experiences with us is really valuable, and it's appreciated and it's heard, as everyone's kind of mentioned. And it's always awkward. I've never gotten used to the fact that we don't reply for good reason, and there's a reason why we don't. But I don't want that to ever be interpreted as we don't hear what's being said and it's received. I too really enjoyed the guests. I always like having opportunities to hear from students and from some of our other faculty and administrators about the great things that are going on in their schools. Again, I think we got a great story to tell, and I think the more and more we can tell it to both our school community, but the larger community as a whole, I think the better. I think that the other headlines tend to get noticed, and so it's exciting to kind of share some of the great things that are going on in our school community. And like everyone else, just want to wish all of you, want to wish all the faculty, staff, students, and all the community at whole a restful break if you get one, but certainly if you celebrate, a Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
So I'll just close kind of reiterating what everyone has said about thanking the parents who came in, our presenters, wishing staff, families, administrators, all of you, a happy and safe holiday season. I'll close with winter sports started this week, and I know there were some basketball games happening tonight, and there was a very important hockey game that took place tonight that my son played his first varsity hockey game in, and they won 5-1, so go Warriors. Super excited for them. And just watching my son and the hockey team and kind of how the younger or the older kids kind of take the younger kids under their wing. My son has a kid who drives him to practice every day who's a senior that he didn't know until he made the team. And while it doesn't necessarily change my attitude about the logo, I really am seeing warrior pride like in my home. And it is a real thing. And I knew that, I knew it, but it's really amazing to actually see it. And my son is just, I just feel really lucky that he's playing on this team with this set of kids. The parents are super committed. And it's really fun to be a part of and to be as close to it now as I am, where I wasn't really kind of as close to it now. So I wish all of the winter sports teams good luck this week as they kind of start with their real games, and hope everybody stays safe and can enjoy themselves. I think with that, we can make a motion to adjourn.
I move the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, December 14, 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Judy, roll call.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes?
Ms. Wall,
Yes.
Mr. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo,
Yes.
Ms. Lehman.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good night. No.
Have a good
I
one.
know, that would be kind of funny.